Well, hello everybody. Welcome back to Double Trouble Wednesday. We have not had the lovely Jessie on. No, it's actually not Double Trouble today. It's single solo Wednesday. We were going to have Double Trouble, but Jessie has just recently had some surgery, so just giving her some downtime, and thought we would do a single show today and instead of double. But hey, we'll pretend it's double because Jessie and I have definitely been doing double trouble behind the scenes, which is why we're actually a little bit late today. We're actually not on Safa time, we're on Americano time today, which could be any time of the hour of the day. You guys are all over this time zone. So happy to see you all here. Hello, everybody. Wonderful to see you in the chats. I'm very happy to see you all. And yeah, you can see everything is changing around here. I'm going to get a green screen, I think, so you won't have to see my creepy picture. No, it's not a creepy picture, but somebody accused me of having a creepy picture. So, of course, I have to smile whenever I see my creepy picture. Anyway, before Jessie comes on, Wednesday we have Wednesday is today. So Jessie today. Thursday is Dr. Dennis, 6 o'clock Central Africa time. And again, Friday, lovely Holly Baglio. And then on the weekend, we will have, actually, let me not say that yet because I'm not sure if that show, but it could be Penny Bradley. But I think it is going up on the weekend. So keep a watch for the rest of our shows. And without any further ado, ta-ram, Madame.
Hello.
So happy to have you back. How are you?
Yeah, hanging in there. So it's been
Well,
busy
really good.
couple weeks for both of us, I think.
Yeah, it's been crazy. And I know you've had one or two little things happen. And I'm very
Yeah,
happy that you're here. And we at Double Trouble Wednesday are giving you an afternoon off. Or is
you
it morning for
are
you?
so gracious. I appreciate
I
that.
know. You can see I've got hearts all over me today.
You're just
I'm
giving
so
out the
full of
love today. I'll receive it.
such a little love bug. Yeah,
You
hearts in
are.
my kitchen. If you guys haven't noticed by now, hearts in my kitchen. So I'll, I like that kitsch, so I'll carry on being kitsch.
Right?
Jessie,
I love it.
yeah, really good to have you back. And we're going to be doing some of the decodes, the coat of arms and stuff. But before, of course, obviously we go there, you have some announcements and then you can open for us with one of your beautiful prayers again.
Thank you. Yes. I have a lot of announcements. So for those who may have not gotten a chance yet, um, Thursday, the 18th in the evening, and then October 2nd are the second and third of my series, Architecture and Altars. So that is an amazing course. If you haven't caught the first one, that is available on my website, kingdomlivingwithjessie.com. Then for the month of October, I'm going to have a very dynamic workshop called Lord Make Us One. And this is going to be an in-depth study on covenant relationships, the challenges to covenant, and fulfilling covenant. Um, we're going to get into some of the things such as codependence, as well as, when you have struggles, relationship issues, dealing with addictions, as well as the process to relating. And then we're going to have some individuals come on that are going to share their experience of how their relationship was transformed as they began to walk with the Lord in covenant. So um, that is all available for registration on kingdomlivingwithjessie.com. And I also have a commercial up on that workshop if you want to catch more about what that's about. So you can find that on YouTube as well as on the website. And then on the website, I also, under the unveiling system, put out a special report on the assassination of Charlie Kirk. So if you want to see from my perspective some of the things that I was catching that I feel are important to bring out about that. That's available on my website as well. So
But
let's go
Jessie,
ahead.
don't don't for one second think you're not going to give us a little spoiler here on Charlie Kirk.
Yeah. Well, we've talked about Odinism, and so I bring out that aspect. What did what does a ritual death include for Odinism? The giveaway in that is that we had our FBI director, I'll just call him Cash. Cash made a very strong statement about Charlie Kirk and said, "Brother, we've got the watch. We'll see you in Valhalla." And where's Valhalla? It's where, the Odinites, those who have died a warrior's death, get to go. But it's not just an afterlife perspective or view. Valhalla is a real place, and I talk about where it is. So it's a real underground city where you have Brotherhood and Odinites meet. So there's a lot going on there. Um,
Wild.
so yeah,
Cool.
yep.
Wow.
So I'll go ahead and say a prayer. Heavenly Father, we thank you for this day. We thank you for this time to gather together. We thank you that you are with us, that you are near, that you are our healer, that you also are the one who fills our days with loving kindness and our nights with faithfulness. We thank you for all that you are to us, and we ask that you would bless the show. We ask that you would bless our technology, our airwaves, and everything in regards to that. And we ask that you would bless our audience today as we have this conversation. In your name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Absolutely. And just bless everybody out there. Just bless you all.
Yes,
We're just happy to have you here, Jess. Just happy to be talking. Karoo. We're going to be talking about the Karoo today
Right?
as well. I'm super excited
Yeah, this
about
is
these
going to be
people.
big. So
Yeah,
we're going to have a lot in this series, but this will be big. Yeah.
really looking forward. Cool. So, do you want to give us a little intro about what we're going to be chatting about?
Yeah, so today we're going to start to get into the backdrop of what is happening in Karoo. And I kind of have been overall teaching a method. You know, everything that is above ground is a map for what is happening below ground. So, how do I teach the method and kind of what we're looking at? I do that through my land assignment coachings. Go ahead if is the first picture of, so you can find, not that one. Go ahead and just wait a sec. So you can
Mm,
find these on my website, kingdomlivingwithjessie.com. The first in the series is my land coachings, is land assignments 1 through 4. In those, we get into, learning to break down the regional city seals that you're going to find in cities here in the United States. We look at, learning to identify the churches in the region, because those are going to kind of all collaborate to tell you where the largest part of the ritual ground underneath is. Because, when Templars came into the United States and began to build the underground, they would identify it by putting usually 3 churches that were in a triangle formation. And there's much more to that, because the churches, beyond just being in a triangle formation, they're going to share a desecrated space in between them. So that's usually where they would build a graveyard, and then underground they'd have a ritual room. under that space. They may have catacombs there, but they're going to desecrate the land. And so we learn about that, and then we begin to learn about, in the land assignment, the knights, the priestesses, how they work regionally, how you can begin to identify them. And then in Land 4, we begin to learn about the structures of the buildings and reading the structures. I get further into that in my series, The Architecture and the Altars, because not only does the structure of the building tell you if it's considered a temple and if they're sacrificing, but as you look closer at the structure, it begins to tell you by the architecture where the altars are and who the altars are to, as well as the gate songs. So they get into, is it a temple? Is there a spiritual gate there? And who is that place dedicated to? Then in the international land assignments, we begin to break down the symbols quadrantly, which gets into the coat of arms. So go ahead with the first one there. As we begin to look at the Karoo area, it is classified as a quadrant area. So it's going to, all the information about it, the system is going to identify in a coat of arms. And their coat of arms is very unique. What are we, in our past series about the popes and the history of the pope, or the popes, we got into kind of breaking down the elements of the coat of arms. And the majority of your coat of arms, you're going to see a shield or a crest, which we see here in the middle. But unlike others, we have all this, it's like an extended, there's something outside of that crest rather than just the crest. It's common to see the crest with the supports on the side, which we see with the wheat, but then you have something more. It extends really far out. And why is that? It's because this area is not just seen as under quadrant authority. So you're going to have more than quadrant leaders. Why do they extend it out? Why do they extend it up? It's because it's going to be under, I guess, what we would call universal jurisdiction, meaning that you're going to highly have the UN involved in this area, as well as your galactic federation or your federation alliance for the sovereign military. So that's why it's so extended out beyond just the little crest we see there in the middle. So there's a lot of information in this coat of arms. As we begin to look at coat of arms, you're always going to have, it starts at the top. You're going to have what's called a crown. It may not always be identified as a crown, but the top part, is a crown. And in that space, you'll either have a crown, a Jesuit hat, a mitre hat, or a sovereign military knight helmet. Now, the crown is usually placed right at the top of the crest, which what do we see, go the other way, what do we see right at the top of the crest? We see a lotus flower. And where do we see the crown? We see the crown, way up top, ascended. And that's important. So, they've got two things going on there, both representing something significant in that crown area. What does the lotus flower represent? Well, we find that in Manly P. Hall's book, for the Order of Melchizedek, we see the lotus flower, and what does it represent? It represents the lifting of consciousness. So, how are they using it? They're literally using it as, to represent your pineal gland. That's important when we think about this area, when we think about trafficking, that's going to be two ways, and it gets very dark because at one level, you know, they're going to be training hierarchy children in the area. And for the hierarchy children, it's going to represent learning to use that pineal gland or that third eye, the lifting of consciousness. Um, Within the system, you've got two, we've talked in the past about two basically Kabbalah trees. How they're going to see that, you know, is this area here. Above that is your upper Kabbalah tree. Below that is the secondary, you know, the reverse of that Kabbalah tree, which it is your Qlifoth, which is your tree of death. Okay, so it's representing both your ascension as well as that in this area they're going to be teaching the tree of life to the hierarchy children. They're going to begin to get into that Kabbalah magic, but then we know that there's more below it, right? And it's kind of weird because that whole crest, you see almost like these raptor-like claws. So we have to ask, what in the world is going on with the tree of death below ground? You're going to get an aspect where they're also teaching dark black Kabbalah, the black magic, and you know all of that together is going to represent the raising of darkness, you know, the raising up of the darkness, because how they use that lotus flower in their imagery, underneath the lotus flower you have a whole root structure, and they actually have, you know, the two people standing, you know, kind of on the sides of where that root structure would extend down underground. And so it gets worse than that because, you know, what do we see then as the supports? We see the wheat, and both your wheat, your corn, you're going to get, you know, layers of information out of this. So at one layer, whenever you see those, the laurel look, that wheat is in what we call the laurel look. It tells you they're going to have priestesses in training. Okay, that's one layer. On a second layer, whenever you see the wheat or the corn in the crest or the sigils, it also represents what we'll just call it cornography for this channel, child cornography. And because they have it in that root structure, you know, what they're considering that tree of death, what we're talking about here is that there's going to be areas where they're literally producing dark, you know, dark corn with children. There's no other way to put it. So, you know, who's doing it? One of the other things I want to point out is the image on the crest itself of the two brothers shaking the hand. That, you know, also is going to represent, again, their training, that this area is going to have twinning programs. But those twinning programs are specific, and that's where it gets back up to the top area. You have the phoenix, and, you know, they're going to be specific in training in the order of the phoenix, and the crown looking like the half sun is going to be your order of the golden dawn. But they're highlighting, you know, you're really going to have a lot of the order of the phoenix. That's also going to get into your ancient order of the Knights of the Order of Solomon. They're like your Knights of the Order of Jerusalem, only they'll be assigned to any sovereign territory, not specifically the Vatican. And I would propose even that they're being specifically trained to serve in UN areas, to serve the UN, and a very specific place in the UN. So that's where we get into the triangle. And before we go to the next slide, I want to finish up the decode here. But the triangle, notice how there's the little gold triangles in it. That's specific because when you look at the imagery of their badges in different orders, you have a very specific group in night successions that is going to be your order of Melchizedek. Now, it's not the overall order of Melchizedek, it's going to be the lower layers, which are going to come through your Knights of the Royal Ark degree, who often are connected to your Order of Solomon. But you know, the succession will be for those knights. They'll start in the Royal Ark degree, then they're going to, you know, get into the Order of Melchizedek, which is where you see the three triangles that will be, you know, facing out from each other. If they're facing a, you know, at the, because those are highlighted in gold, those three, that's the Order of Melchizedek. But at the top of that triangle, like when you see it kind of that other formation, that can also represent your Knights of Pythias. But specifically here, you know, it's your Order of Melchizedek. And what do they get into then? You get your Rosicrucians, which we know, you know, the red rose, the Rosicrucians are often tied to um, the some of the breeding programs with the roses, and particularly the raising up of certain you know, men in the system that are going to be connected to uh, usually, you know, business and various things. But you can also get, you know, leaders, more of your leaders, whether that's of different youth development programs. So there's a lot packed into this. Even your, we see kind of in the, sorry, the middle here, we see the spears. You're going to see the spears symbology like that in connection with your Order of Solomon, those knights. Now, the other thing beyond the chronography, um, when you see the lotus flower like that, and we see some of the different symbology, um, it also can represent that this is an area where, you know, we know that in the system they collect things like adreno, but adreno isn't just always straight adreno. In the upper levels, they mix it with hormones that they, you know, there's old procuring methods that I've talked about in some of our shows where they literally tap the pineal gland for the hormones that are there, and those will go into special tinctures too. So is this an area where they make, produce some of that special hormone and adrenal mix compound? It very well may be. Why do we say that? That takes us back up to the crown up there. Notice how, you know, we've talked about some of the stars in the system, what they symbolize. When we see the pinnacle like stars like that, first it's going to tell us that there's a massive altar and a high place there. So they're going to have a high place, but it's also going to tell us about the ritual seasons that they engage in. And usually when you see the ritual rotations, the pinnacles used for that, you'll see it more like a nautical star, but it also can be represented like this. And we see all 8 pinnacles there telling us that this area is going to participate in not just, you know, what's required in the system, it's required, you know, that people participate in 4 rituals a year, but they're going to participate in all 8, you know, holy rituals. So that's the main ones that are in season, as well as those they're going to consider out of season, are all going to be held in a high place there. And you're going to have your Order of Phoenix, Order Solomon, and Order Melchizedek all gathering. And my guess is wherever that high place is that they also are going to have a low place there, and that will be where they're going to have the major production of the child pornography in that area. So, um, you know, this does directly connect to a UN area. So it also can be held at this specific UN area, which we're going to get into here. So let's go ahead and go to the next one. And I know there's a lot there. So that triangle is specific to a specific UN building. And we'll go to the next picture here. Go ahead.
Okay, I have questions, but I'll come back.
Oh, why don't you ask your questions first before we move on?
I mean, there's quite a few questions, obviously, that being the Karoo. What I find interesting, I know the area that probably would be the high area is exactly the area I was at school in Graaff-Reinet, which is the area that Johann Rupert has bought up majorly. It's the area where the San people, the Khoisan, the Bushmen, they were there. It's also the area, and you'll see a lot of the Bushman paintings on the rocks and stuff there, semi-desert. There's a lot of alien activity that occurs there. He's brought up, as I said, that is sacred ground. That whole Graaff-Reinet, New Bethesda. New Bethesda is a very well-known area for this. There's a place there called the Owl House, where it's the woman is no longer alive that started it many years ago, but literally that's the place where we told there's a lot of alien activity. She obviously,
which that's all going to be connected to your Galactic Federation.
Yes, exactly. Because and her speciality is making beautiful owls, all shapes, all sizes, and she's well known for that. And they get sold all over South Africa. And I mean, people go there to that area because the Owl House is well known for that being a sacred spot. Graaff-Reinet, as I said, is that area. Last time we spoke, I showed you the picture of the big church. That is in Graaff-Reinet, same area, that huge, beautiful church. That is the town that Rupert has bought up. What I find it very interesting, what we do, obviously in South Africa, we wear school uniforms. My school was in Graaff-Reinet, English school, Afrikaans school, two main schools, and literally representing the Anglo-Boer War, because once a year we have an inter-schools game between Union, the English school, and Folk school, Afrikaans school, known as the Anglo-Boer War. The English and Afrikaans clash. I mean, it's very well known in the Karoo. Our school colors are exactly that, green and gold. And when you have a badge on your blazer, and you've gained colors, like, you know, you're good at sport, you've excelled at sport, you get team, half colors, double colors, okay? When you have colors around for a sport, you have that wheat wreath. You either for team, you get a white one, half color, half gold, and full colors, full gold, exactly like that. It looks like that. That's the wreath on our school. Folk school, the Afrikaans school, is black and maroon. That's their school colors. There are definitely some very interesting family names, farmers around there. Graaff-Reinet, incidentally, is more English in the Karoo than what the rest of the Karoo is. It's more English, so it would tell me that the British settled there more, okay, and way back years yonder. So now when we're listening to Beverly Rhodes, who was obviously, she was the psychic for the ex-president, she will concur that the Karoo is a huge area for SNU, SNUFF movies. Exactly that. There's a lot of child hunting that goes on there, and there's a lot of Khoisan breeding programs for the Khoisan children that happen in that area. And those, the pictures there, you can't really see, it looks more like Zulu though. I mean, that could be any culture there, which is interesting. So those were, you know, just as you were speaking, those were some of the correlations, and most importantly, Princess Irene of the Netherlands has a farm there. She neighbors some of my school friends. She has a farm in the Karoo with two. She had White Lion, Princess Irene of the Netherlands, and she likes to keep it very hush hush. We're not allowed to talk about the fact that she lives there. I broadcast it loud and proud. Every time my school friends tell me we're not allowed to talk about it, I go, rubbish, shenanigans going on there. So she runs like yoga retreats and stuff like that, apparently. So Princess Irene of the Netherlands is all in that area, which I wanted to just say.
Yeah, I have a question. What are the mascots for the schools? Or we can look it up. We'll look it up later for another show.
Yeah. Just give when you say mascot, just be specific. What do you mean by mascot? Mascot, the way I understand it, is a toy that you have. That's what I understand.
Like for rallies, for games, like in the United States, like our schools will be identified by a mascot. So a lot of times on the school signs, they'll have the mascot there, whether that's a wolf, a cougar, a eagle, a dragon. Usually it's connected to an animal or a man, like you could have a knight, a warrior, an arrowhead.
I must actually look at my school badge. Let me just actually look. Because not that
we'll look it up later.
I remember
or when we get into the schools.
Let me actually, yeah.
Yeah, so I'm curious because that will tell us which military bases they're working.
Nothing specific.
I'm not trying to interrupt you. I think we're getting a little lag here.
Wow. Yeah, no worries whatsoever. So I was just thinking if there's anything else that but definitely the area would be mostly, I mean, the Karoo is a big area and it's semi-desert. One thing I did want to ask you, would there be any ceremonies or anything that happen in August?
Oh yeah, definitely, all the time. Let me quick look up. So a great resource is the Open Scroll calendar, and then satanic holidays, and it gives you all the main ones. So in August, starting you get kind of end of July, 27th is usually your grand climax after summer solstice. Then it's going to get August 1st is one of your Shabbat festivals and gets into your fire Shabbats, which we talked about the importance of that's going to be connected to the kickoff for the calendar systems for the Mayan, the Incan, the Aztec contracts. So that's August 1st, and then they're going to have their Feast of the Sun somewhere in there. Then August 3rd, you get Satanic Revels. August 24th is St. Bartholomew's Day, which is the Great Fire Shabbat. And then all of that leads into September 7th, which is going to be your marriage to the beast ceremony.
I'm asking because the last time I was there was at my school reunion in 2023, August 2023. Now, what I wanted to find out as well, there was two guys in my class that really excelled, and one of them I know was in some gifted program. Now, after school, he went on to study and become one of these very clever people. I can't remember.
Like
Yeah,
genius, a
I'll think of
genius. Yeah.
something like that. Very quiet, but was head boy, captain of this, captain of that, lots of things, right? But turns out now at that, and went overseas, worked there a lot. Didn't hear from him at all. He never came back. But now in a monastery somewhere in the UK, living in a monastery. Okay.
Hmm.
Another guy. This is the one of interest. Never excelled at school. Okay, but farmer in the area. The other one wasn't a farmer. His parents lived in town. Other one, farmer in the area. Um, Never excelled at school. Right? Like super excelling in the banking industry. Like we're going, wow. Turns out my last reunion I went to, his father had passed away, whatever, but they had sold his farm to Johann Rupert. Now, we know Johann Rupert runs, that's the same guy that owns Crawfordnet, right? So that weekend we were there. His father had recently passed away, and he wanted to go to the farm and scatter some of his ashes. I mean, understand this is a strong farming, very together knitted community. We all know each other there, right? It's a very strong community.
Yeah.
Goes there, gets to the gate, turned away, not allowed to come in and not allowed to scatter his father's ashes because there are kids there that day. Immediately,
Wow.
bing, every red flag in me goes up because that weekend of inter schools that we were there, understand, that's why I said it's like the Anglo-Boer War. No one is on their farms. Everyone is at inter schools. Everyone,
Right.
all the B&Bs are fully booked. Everyone is sleeping on everyone's couch. None of the farmers are there because they're all old boys of the schools, okay? So they are there at inter schools for the entire weekend in town. No one's on the farms. So I'm wondering, and that would have been the 4th of August, 2023.
Wow. Yeah, so right during the fire Shabbat. Well.
Jesus annoys me.
Yeah, crazy.
And so I'm wondering, just in terms of that guy, his sudden uprise, the connection to obviously the banking, which is the Rothschilds and the Ruperts, selling the farm. Obviously, look, I don't believe he's involved at all. He was super upset. He was super upset when they wouldn't allow him on. And then I'd already said, listen, that oak that has bought your farm is not kosher. They're trafficking kids. And then, of course, I think that played a lot on his mind, but never had a conversation about it afterwards. Of course, you know, when I put that information out there, it does not make me popular with
No.
the Crawfordnet people. No one wants to hear that. So interesting that that's all happening there, because I do believe Rupert is a lot more involved than just running the country. We know that. He's involved in his breeding programs. He's involved with the child hunting and the child transportation in a big way.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah, I think that's the short and sweet of it, you know. Definitely. But we're going to get further into all that, you know, as we continue in this series. We'll get further into those areas, look at the schools, how we can know what's going on there. And, you know, all of this is going to lead back in this area to a connection with the United Nations, you know, which is really sad, that, you know, you have the Brotherhood working at a larger scale in this area to do the things that they're going to be doing. So let's keep going. Let's look at the next picture here. So, you know, the triangle is specific to your Vienna International Center, which here's a top view picture of it. These three kind of unique shaped buildings are known as Uno City, and you're going to get it connected to the UN, and their symbol, which you can see down here in the bottom right corner, you see the Uno City. But notice that circle with all the colors. That's specific because it's going to connect to other things, which we see a lot of the unique coloring also in the crest or the coat of arms for that area. Um, that is going to connect to certain brotherhood orders that you're going to have kind of intersecting. So, when we talk about this, they're going to kind of be broad because, people are going to have choices based on what their magical specialties are as to which orders particularly they're going to enter into and which circle groups they'll be a part of. So where does that symbol down on the bottom, the circle with all the colors, connect to? Go ahead to the next one. That it directly connects to the UN, but this is giving us another view of those buildings and kind of the center of them. And notice we've got kind of an area that looks very similar to another place we know. You've got that kind of same gate looking portico at Rome in Italy with the Vatican. So usually when you see those, they're going to be like those in the system, they know those are connected to the C's, SEES. You have your Holy See, which is under the Vatican, connected. The Holy See is going to be kind of like your governing board in connection to the Vatican over the Babylon system. But then you have your Mother See, which we talked about in connection to the Apostolic Armenian Church that is in Turkey. So it's a place where, whenever you see those, just know it's connected to the seas, and the seas areas, are going to be where you're going to have a connection with your galactic federation. Go ahead to the next one. So we notice that circular symbol connected to the global goals for the UN for their sustainable development. That's kind of their code words. They filed everything under sustainable development, but this circular symbol goes back, it's basically all capstones, which we know are something that they use up to, to symbolize the third and the fourth degree in Freemasonry, representing master masons. But why do they have it in the circle formation? Because that gets to their gold chain of Homer, which they're going to, again, that gold chain, they'll also see it in connection to Horus, which we know is represented by the single eye, and further than it representing the sun and the sun rays and your golden dawn. But usually your suns are going to all be in gold. Why is this sun have all the rays in different colors? Beyond representing a sun, it also is representing a mantle, that mantle being a coat of many colors that will be placed over the shoulders. And where do we see that? Well, heck, we saw Nancy Pelosi and her gang wearing that and bowing one knee down. All of that's going to connect to some of your different order extensions, particularly, it will start off your order of the polar star, then you get your order of the seraphim as the preceptors, Then they'll get into the colors like this. So, you're talking those that are working through their degrees who get to the 24th degree and above, they'll get into the Order of Mongolia. Then from there, they're going to be kicked into your Order of the Red Banner, which gets into the judges, the lawyers. So you're going to see a lot of interconnections with, those that are considered, what does the capstone represent? They're considered builders. So does this even connect with your Bilderberg and those that are getting into, law, um, being judges, being businessmen? It does. That's really what the global goals is about. You're going to get high level men that are, even women, who are investing in different areas and building and developing those areas according to brotherhood standards. So let's go ahead to the next one. Where else do we see the global goals ambassadors interconnecting? We see that in connection, and you'll see, like, I've kind of put the global goal symbol, but up above, the new Quantum de Mexico project with trains, we see that same crescent with kind of the capstone look and the colors. I've done a special report on trains and the connection with the new quantum system, and they're trafficking through the United States all the way down to Mexico under the United Nations. And, we see that all of this is under the Goodwill Ambassadors of the World projects. I've done another special report where I get into UNESCO and the global ambassadors of the world and show how, even through trucking companies, all of this is interconnected to their transportation in human trafficking. So again, here's now one more area where, it's filed under and interconnecting with these things. It's not just that they're doing these things in that area, there is an outbranching and outsourcing to other areas. What's one of the biggest areas where the Order of the Phoenix is interconnected? It gets down past Florida and into Mechlon, which we covered in our Mormon series, which is near Cuba. So you've got trains that go all the way from Florida down there to Mechlon, and that's covered in that train episode, the special report that I did. So, we're going to see some interconnections, and notice though how that quantum symbol is in a crescent moon shape. That is going to get into further things as we look into it. So, through this, what's the quantum project through? It's through your Ferromax, your Grupa, and your JB Hunt trucking company, who joined with those train companies. And, this is going to get into the international supply chain through the railways and the trucking. So let's go to the next one. If you want to see the fullness on what I have to say about the trains, I encourage you to see that special report. But this is some of the stuff I get into in that report. I talk about Grupo Mexico transports. We see their logo up there in the red. And notice how you see the stripes, you see these paths. That windy path, beyond sun rays, they're going to make it look like valleys here and roadways up mountains. But we see that symbol other places as well. It can represent sun rays. It also can represent the winding path connected to your golden dawn. We see that kind of same striping connected to Jeffrey Epstein Island. And we talked about how, that area and the temple there went back to Aleppo, Syria. So you know, all of this interconnects. That same symbol being connected to Ferromex, um, all of those being, you know, transportation um, through trains and other things. And then they joined JB Hunt Trucking. And up here in the upper left corner, we see within the United States, um, up through Mexico, we see how those companies are coming up through Mexico and basically branching out all along the same underground submarine lines to all the major military bases where children are trafficked through. So we see all their massive hubs interconnecting with areas where you've got massive underground cities and dumb bases in that. And there's a reason there's, you know, connections with this. So let's get further. Go ahead to the next one. So as we look further, here's then the breakdown of their Ferromex Mexico lines. And when you think, you know, Order of Phoenix, you have to go to another subgroup under your Order of Solomon, which is going to be your Order of Quetzalcoatl. Your Order of Quetzalcoatl is underneath the Shriners. Their original purpose was that you would have knights in that order whose job was to move the system's assets from Mexico into the United States. Usually it was from, you know, it involved finances and would be from the different children's hospitals that the Shriners would be connected to. So here we can see some of their main running lines there. Again, you know, those are going to center around Mexico City, Guadalajara, and Monterrey, but you also have then those hubs directly connecting to Chicago, which is a massive hub, the Dallas-Fort Worth area, as well as the US, both Western quadrants and Eastern quadrants. So this really is massive. All of this being interconnected with the global sustainable agendas of the elite. So let's go to the next one. Who's kind of coming in as a back runner in all this, financially backing a lot of stuff? You get Blackstone and BlackRock. Initially, Blackstone and BlackRock were one, but then separated, and you had Blackstone became kind of the main financial management, all of those being funded by Larry Fink and Stefan Schwarzman. So, you know, we know BlackRock is not good. We know that they're involved not only in brotherhood, sovereign military things, you know, you're going to get a huge connection with the sovereign military with BlackRock, as well as them operating through different paramilitary groups, particularly here in the United States. But they're not, these paramilitary groups are not just bound to the United States. They operate internationally. And this is really who's paying them and funding their endeavors. They, you know, they're really through that, you know, I think their guise is military, you know, private for hire contractors, but they're really working for the sovereign military order in these different areas, moving the supply chain and the assets of the system, which does include children and includes, you know, the movement of gathering children, abducting, moving them up from underground, keeping them in cages until ritual times. That also includes moving hierarchy children that are being trained for certain things from one training ground to another in their day-to-day training logistics. Let's go ahead to the next one. So behind this further, Again, look at the symbols. Notice the half crescent, but the half crescent moon, but instead of capstones, what do we see? We see stars, particularly five-pointed stars, which in the Brotherhood, what does that represent? That represents the homosexual sex. You can also have, when you see all the stars in a circle, it represents your councils, a connection to your special councils in particular. So this is important. How many stars do we see there? Let's count them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19. We know that all the special councils run by odd numbers. Your common special councils are your council of 5, your council of 7, which is also called the Ennead, which is an Egyptian bird god. You've got your council of 9, which is also called the Ninth Circle, which you had Queen Elizabeth sitting in. They're known to be strong cannibals and engage in active, open cannibalism. You get your council of 11, your council of 13, your council of 21. Those are the main ones. But I would propose that, there were councils created, the Clinton Foundation being one of those that is going to operate worldwide, that became a special council to deal with certain things. So we see the symbology here. You've got all members of the Clinton family, including Bill, Hillary, and Chelsea involved, working directly between certain UN sites and their foundation in order to operate at mass scale worldwide movement of, not just children for sexual purposes, but also for, all their nefarious purposes. So let's get further. So we see the same crescent moon shape in connection to the quantum, the De Mexico transportations. We see it in connection to your global initiatives with the UN and that particular, the Vienna International Center. We also see it in connection to Chelsea and a very particular individual, Ashton Kutcher, who had started up an anti-child trafficking organization called Thorn. Now, when we see the symbol for Thorn, we see it all in lowercase, and we see kind of above the O, we see a very distinct mark that, is it a UFO? Is it a upside down paperclip? When you look at Project Paperclip or Colonel Michael Aquino's End Time War Manual trilogy called the Mind War trilogy, we see the same symbol in these same directions in the second and the third book of that war manual, which is an active war manual. So those books are called Star, Find, and then Find Far. And so is Thorn an extension of the work that Colonel Michael Aquino was doing, operating under the Department of Defense and the DIA for this, all connected to your Galactic Federation. But in that, you have phases. Mind War, Star, Find, and Find Far all represent 3 phases that they were initiating in end time things. So the first phase, Mind Wars, deals with building mind constructs. Like we talked about that, where, you're going to get where they're, instead of the old ways where they would torture people horrifically and cause trauma in order to create people that would do what they wanted them to do, Mind Wars focuses on mind constructs that applies to the morals and ethics. So they did that simulation through the, we'll say, the Jabby Jabber incident that we had in 2020, where, if you want to be a good neighbor, if you want to protect your family, your elderly, your children, you'll get the shot, the Jabby Jabber, right? So that's one of the ways they use mind constructs. If you want to, you know, keep everybody safe, you'll stand 6 feet apart. They get you to do what they want by applying to the ethics. The second phase of that, the star find, applies in um, really building the soul. They get into, you don't need the physical body, everything's spiritual. We're all chosen. This is where it gets into the Galactic Federation, the star seeds. There's 144,000 that are chosen, to be a part of this unique, special world. And, the star seeds are going to choose you. There's going to be a mass end time event, a near death experience for everyone. And in that moment, when you're in your near death experience, the star seeds are going to visit those who are chosen to take their bodies. And, your spirit's going to be set free, hop on the UFO ship, you know, enter into Mars, and you're free. That's, kind of the Jessie version of what they teach. But then in Find Far, it gets even worse, because Find Far uh, really has embedded in it suicide coding. You don't need your physical body, only the spiritual matters. That's the heightened enlightenment and ascension. It all deals with the soul. This is what they teach. And ditch your physical body, commit suicide, and join our Galactic Federation. This is all a way for them to gain access to your soul. The truth is, what is our end time state that God has prepared for us? It's the glorified body that is physical and spiritual and everlasting. Why do they want people to commit suicide? It's because they want you to not reach that glorified state that the Lord has prepared for you, that is eternal. So that's the scary part in all this, is you have a anti-trafficking association connected highly to Chelsea Clinton, who is not innocent in all of this. She was never meant to be as big of a player as her mother. Hillary was really who they had, as the face front for everything, for the end time things they were wanting to usher in. But, Chelsea is connected to the supply and chain, and is a huge connection in that. So that's important as we look at this area. Let's go on to the next one, because we see the Clintons highly involved in coming into the area. We see a lot of their endeavors focused on the South Africa area, including visits to Karoo, South Africa, with a focus on, what's their focus? They claim conservation and tourism initiatives. So that's all going to connect to the UN, the global sustainable initiatives. The primary area and region in focus included the Taos River area and a garden route that they built, which, they're saying is for tourism, but who's going to come tour? It's going to be your brotherhood. So this is how they, you know, um, kind of indirectly communicate with each other what is available in the area. They want to create a network of national parks, which we know all national parks are filed under a couple things. Your national parks are going to be under brotherhood, sovereign control. They have their own court systems, their own governments, all run by sovereign military, particularly your Order of the Foresters and your Order of Odin. Then you're going to have conservation efforts in the region that they're going to connect to. Your national parks are also going to be, many of them are under UNESCO, which is how they're getting funded. Let's go ahead to the next one. So as we get further, the Taos River area, the Karoo National Parks, I think there's a lot underground in these areas. You know, again, much of that's going to deal with your child pornography, dark web, things that they're producing, all being funded through UNESCO, through their, you know, World Historical Cultural Sites. You know, when they classify something as cultural, it just basically means all the child porn we produce is going to have these cultural twists to it. Mars, Chronos, those different things, you know, the theme tells you what the theme of the pornography is going to be. And again, it's not just sex, that when they enter into producing the pornography, it's considered a live playing action role game, and they're actually committing the crimes and the acts and filming it, and you know, they're going to profit off of those children's deaths, or those children's rapes, those children's tortures. They're going to profit off of it. And we've talked about Hillary, you know, maybe that would be another great show just to discuss, you know, Hillary's frazzle, we'll just call it frazzles. You know, it was not a one-time event. It was her style and, you know, her signature way of killing children. So, you know, they wear the mask as a way to honor the entities that they worship. And, you know, many times in rituals, they would cover their faces so people didn't know who was who. And she would literally cover her face with her victims, you know, and thought that she actually thought it was funny. You know, for her, it was her quirky sense of humor to wear, you know, the child she murdered's face on her own face rather than the porcelain mask that she could have worn or another mask. But, you know, it didn't hide her identity, but that's just, you know, she would laugh and laugh and laugh about it, thinking she was funny. Anyway, let's go to, we've got just a few more, and then let's do the few more and then we'll cover some questions. So there are maps we can see in South Africa there. We see the route, the garden route and the Route 62 through South Africa. Notice it's on that very southern hemisphere of things. You know, you kind of got to overlap between the two. You've got the, you know, the garden route just going below the Route 62. But I have there at the bottom right, that also is a map of your significant tour spots and caves and cavern systems. So notice how close those overlaps are. And I would propose that between those two systems, you have a significant underground that stretches that whole expanse of the southern hemisphere of South Africa that they're using underground. So it's a massive underground. You can see the cavern systems extend across that whole part. Um, and I think that's just access points into the underground. So that in between those routes and that cavern system, I think is all the extending underground area just for that part. I think it goes much farther up, but that's the significant area, I think, of interest. Go ahead to the next one. Yeah, so I think that's the last one for our Karoo South Africa decode there.
Second last, we've got one more that looks like that.
Okay, yeah, I think that was supposed to be the first one. But anyway.
Oh, right, okay.
So we'll get to
Sorry.
questions,
Okay.
but just to kind of conclude, um, you know, as we're beginning to dig further in this, if you want to learn how to be able to identify, to read the above ground, to know what's below ground, you can do that through my land coachings 1 through 4 and the international coachings, which are all available on my website, kingdomlivingwithjessie.com. I'll go ahead and let you ask some questions now, Chanti.
Oh. Well, first, let me recover from all of this because I live on the garden route. We're well aware of shenanigans that go on here. It is definitely the most, it depends what you like, but on the tier, let's say the top 4 holiday destinations in the country. Yeah, we know that there's a lot of trafficking children. There's a lot of that going on here. There's a big drug problem in amongst the children, yeah, that are obviously below the breadline kind of thing. We've known that for a long time, and it's also in line with what Beverly's been saying, Beverly Rhodes, what she was saying as well with her experience of being here as well and what goes on here. So it's disturbing. I mean, it's seriously disturbing when we see that because it's
It can't continue. I mean, that's the truth of it. Like now that we know, it's like it can't continue. We know that horrific things are happening to the children. We know that there's a change of hands, which we're going to get into next week, because, it's not so much. Hillary, I believe, is gone. So she's not a part of the problem anymore. Do you maybe still have Bill Chelsea involved in that? I think Chelsea absolutely. But then who's she working with? Who's all with the Vienna Center? Who's there? Who's behind the UN Global Sustainable Development Programs? That's who we got to look at, as well as, we're going to see next week how involved some of the local government is. And that's where we get into, our local governments are selling and profiting off of our children, people behind that. So, as we dig further, we're gonna just keep peeling back those layers to say who and who's responsible. So that's what we want to look at. Who's responsible for this? And if given the chance, in not everybody who's in connected to our local governments is going to be bad. But if given the chance, are they going to choose to do what's right? If given the knowledge, are they going to investigate? Are they going to look? And are they going to not just solve the problem? It needs to be stopped. It needs to be fixed. Somebody's got to clean up the underground. Um, are they going to do it? That's the question.
Well, I think as long as we allow them to do it, they're going to do it, because why would they want to stop when they have been getting away with this murderous stuff for so long? You see, and then also you're not just looking. I mean, look at South Africa. Anyone who knows anything about wines knows that South Africa is one of the top wine growing regions in the world. Okay. And that is because our forefathers are French. They came from France as well. They started wine growing here, and it's also got the perfect wine growing regions. Now, those wine farms, now you have the garden route and you have the wine route. The wine route is pretty much, you travel on the garden route and you go to Cape Town, and it's just past Cape Town. It's pretty much all on the same area, right? But then you go there and you look at the wine farms and you see all these top golfers. Ernie Els, for example, owns some of the most beautiful wine farms out there. And I still, when I was there the last time, because I went in February for my nephew's wedding, and I was sitting on one of the wine farms, Ernie Els's wine farm, having lunch there, and I said, isn't it interesting how many top sports people, not just golfers, South Africa is a very sporty country. You've got good sports people, right? So, and those that have excelled have really been pushed to excel. So you have like Ernie Els, the golfer, and that's one of Trump's friends. He was over in America. That was one of the guys over in America with Johan Rupert the other day, talking about the farm murders that were taking place. That's Ernie Els, okay? Then you have like these rugby players. I can't remember all their names now, but they're all well established with wine farms in this area.
Yeah.
So,
well, think about that. Where did we see a similar scenario in our episodes on the Montauk Project? We saw Martha Stewart, who also has a lot of investment in vineyards, and we saw Barack Obama, right? And what was just right across the way, across the water from their vineyards, you have massive underground submarine, Nazi submarine base, and you have the Montauk Project. So is it convenient that they have, their underground and have areas above ground that, where they're going to place key investors in the underground? I think it's not so much about the vineyard or what they're making there. It's about investment in the land, in the territory, and in the underground.
Absolutely. That's what I'm thinking, for sure. It's prime area, and I mean, for the average person to go and buy a property around there, it's virtually impossible, right? You've got to be earning big money, or
Yeah.
you've got to be a foreigner that comes and invests here. But it's like Rupert. That's but funny, you don't see Oppenheimer around a lot with these things. We all know Oppenheimer is fully involved, but it's always Rupert who's around. His name gets flashed around a lot in these sort of socialite circles, right? Oh, Oppenheimer is very much there, but they're like kind of in the background.
Yeah.
And it's just amazing for me to see how many, as we're unpacking all of this, how it fits in. We've always known it's fitted in, right? But what is fitting? What does that mean? What does it actually mean to this country? What does it mean to the people here? What does it mean to those who've suffered under this lie, right? Because it's just one big, fat, stinking, disgusting, slimy lie. that we've been fed. You know, Nelson Mandela, all this crap, Desmond Tutu. I mean, all these beautiful people that come out of Africa that are nothing more than fakes. I mean,
Yeah.
honestly. But, you know, at the end of the day, I also have to realize, you know, like I say, I mean, this continent is very close to my heart. I love it. I'm very protective over it. But we also have to realize at the same time that, you know, there's a lot of horrific elements that have always been at play here. And we've been lied to about everything, you know.
Yeah.
And it's not about the country per se, it's about the people. You know, all of us, well, I'd like to think the majority of us watching these shows and watching this channel will understand that it's us, the people. It doesn't matter what our nationality is. It's us, the people, that have been lied to. It's us, the people, that have been um, set up to fight against each other. You know,
Yeah.
it's we laughed at. It's one big fat joke. I mean, Hillary Clinton wearing a child's face as a mask. I mean, and laughing.
Yeah.
I mean, I can just imagine that level of hysteria in her voice. Because to do something like that, you must be delusional. You're psychotic.
Yeah.
You've something has
Lovers of
tripped inside of your head.
evil, you know,
Yeah, I
lovers of
mean,
evil.
yeah. Anyway, you know, there's a lot, and I look forward to unpacking this all. Thank you, Jessie. I really, really, really appreciate that. Joanne, as always, you are such a beautiful angel for this channel. I so appreciate you. Thank you so much. Yeah, I want to just see. Okay, Jess, I think we're going to let you off the hook for today.
All right.
Is
We'll
there
go ahead and
anything you...
close in prayer.
Yeah, fantastic.
Heavenly Father, we thank you. We thank you that we can know this information. We ask that you would empower, that you would provide a way for we, the people, to be able to deal with these things, Lord, that we may be able to hold those who are guilty to account, that we may be able to procure justice for the children, that we may be able to stop the evil, tear up the altars, tear down the high places and the strongholds. Lord, let them completely be demolished and hewed up. I just think of these deep evil root systems being torn up and brought to light. We ask that all things would be laid naked and bare before the eyes of the world. And we ask, Lord, that the children would come out with songs of joy. We thank you that you are able to do such a great deliverance, that they are not bound by the evil that happened to them, that they are not bound by mental torment or anxiety. Lord, we ask for complete freedom. How do we know it's going to be that way? Because wherever the Spirit of the Lord is, there is freedom. And we thank you that you talk about these days, you talk about these times, that you shall bring up from underground and out of the mountains those who have been blind, those who have been lame, those who have been held captive, those who have been oppressed. And you said that you shall make them into a mighty army, and that they shall come forth with songs of joy. They shall be led forth with peace. We thank you for that, and we say, not our will, but thine be done. In your name we pray, Jesus. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Jessie.